Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas DeLauer here. I don't go live super often anymore just because it's busy. It's hard, had little kids at home and everything like that. But my inbox has been flooded. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I've probably gotten 30 or 40 just emails this morning about this new Frontiers in Medicine study that came out that called the ketogenic diet literally a disease promoting disaster. I'm not here to say keto's amazing. We should not listen to this study at all. Hopefully by now you know Thomas DeLauer well enough to know that I take a pretty neutral stance on things, and I try to play devil's advocate with a lot of this stuff. And when I look at this study, I didn't get angered because there were a lot of pieces in this study that I completely agree with. And I know that's shocking, right? Because this new journal, or this new study, published in this journal, really did outline some pretty alarming things. But for those that would just look at the review article, right? For those that would just like Lee Crosby, who wrote he was the lead review author. If you just read his sort of excerpt of it, it makes it sound like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Keto's terrible. And I want to open this entire live, and I'm going to open it up to chat and everything like that, especially after I do my review, because I want to be able to answer people's questions about this because it's so important. It leaves people wondering if they are doing something wrong. And a lot of my content has really been geared towards doing keto in a relatively clean way. And I feel like a lot of people in the keto industry, I will say, I'm not even going to name names, but they have proposed that keto be this dirty, sloppy, greasy thing. And unfortunately, if you do go that route, then yeah, it could be bad. So I'm here to clear this up. It's live, but I know that this video is probably going to take off given this whole article. So I'm going to keep the brevity in check so that I can just get right to it. If I'm glancing over now and then, I have the article, the paper right next to me, like I have my screen split. So I'm scanning back and forth so that I can pull parts of the article while I'm talking with you, because it's going to be pretty real time. I mean, I've obviously reviewed it, but I want to be able to talk about it. Okay, so essentially, this review, ketogenic diets and chronic disease, let's see, so weighing the benefits against the risks, found that most people, the possible long-term risks of keto ultimately outweigh the possible benefits. And they say, and I quote, the typical keto diet is a disease-promoting disaster. That's what Lee Crosby wrote. He's a registered dietitian. Anyhow, loading up on red meat, processed meat, and saturated fat, and restricting carbohydrate-rich vegetables, fruits, and legumes, and whole grains is a recipe for bad health. I'm going to repeat that one more time. This is what he says. Okay, it says loading up on red meat, processed meat, and saturated fat, and restricting carbohydrate-rich vegetables, fruits, legumes, and whole grains is a recipe for bad health. I don't disagree with most of that, right? Like, I think most of us would agree that loading up on tons of processed meat, perhaps too much red meat and not enough balance from thiamine from other things, right? Perhaps not getting your veggies in, not getting the occasional fruit in. That is, I agree. So I think when I first read this, and that was kind of the opening statement, it made me think like, okay, this person is looking at dirty keto. They're looking at people that are going to In-N-Out Burger and eating, Flying Dutchmans and double doubles every single day and calling it a day. And that is exactly on this channel what we are not condoning. I know I've done fast food videos. I know I've done Costco videos. And yes, it's okay to have some fun every now and then and enjoy yourself. I go to In-N-Out now and then, but maybe a little more than I should, to be completely honest. But point is that we have to look at this big picture. So again, if I'm scanning back and forth, it's just because this is live and I have the article in front of me. So I'm going to list off some of the key findings that they found in this, right? First one was, they said poor diet quality and nutrient deficiencies on a keto diet. That's what they were finding. Okay, there was a lot of that, right? Keto diets are presented, but they're not likely to be safe long-term. Restricting carbohydrates skews the diet towards carcinogenic foods. In fact, typical keto diets have been linked to an increase of all these different things, which I'm afraid to even say specific disease state words here on YouTube. Keto diets may be especially unsafe for women who are pregnant or may become pregnant. Low-carb diets are linked to a higher risk of neural tube defects in the baby. Interesting. Higher protein keto diets could hasten kidney failure, those with kidney disease. Regarding the pregnant thing, I think you've probably recalled, if you've been a veteran of this channel, that I would never recommend that someone is pregnant do keto. Why? Because we just don't know enough about that world, right? I feel like that is a time when you're probably balancing what you would really try to get in the way and putting yourself in a mimicked starvation. Because we have to remember what keto is. Keto is mimicked starvation, right? You're mimicking fasting via a ketogenic protocol. Hey, we have a lot of people. We have like 1,000 people on this live broadcast. Would everyone just please do me a quick favor and hit that thumbs up button really quick? Just hit that like button. That way this gets out there and people can see it and everything like that. Okay, so one of the first things they looked at was the diet quality piece. Regardless of what kind of diet you are doing, keto, paleo, fasting, whatever, diet quality always matters, okay? If you only look at calories and you never pay attention to diet quality, then absolutely you are going to have micronutrient deficiencies. Okay, so I've just made some specific notes here, so I'm just scrolling through so I make sure that I've, not skipping over things. Fiber, one of the most important pieces, right? One of the things that I would typically recommend on keto is that you lean into those heavy soluble fibers. That is not what's normally promoted with keto, right? A lot of times people with keto are promoting this whole piece of, oh, you don't need to have any fiber at all. And I think some of the lines are getting blurred here, right? Like some of these, we know that fiber is important. No one is denying that, right? Okay, there's people within the carnivore community that might say you don't need fiber, but there's a very, very clear line between zero carb and zero fiber whatsoever and keto, where you're having some fiber coming in. And what I mean by that is, like, there's no gray area. If you are doing carnivore, the reason you don't need fiber is because your system is working in an entirely different way, and we're going to leave that on the table because it's not on today's discussion. If you are doing keto, you probably should be trying to get a little bit of fiber in. I try to recommend chia. I try to recommend flax. People have negative things to say about that, but the bottom line is that we have to take care of our microbiome. And this study doesn't even scratch the tip of the iceberg when it comes down to the microbiome, right? When you first start a ketogenic diet, you have a change in your gut microbiome. Your gut microbiome becomes less diverse, right? Okay, it does. And that is a normal thing as you start a ketogenic protocol. Okay, that's a bummer, right? Well, studies have demonstrated that after 6 months, that completely restores back to baseline. In fact, then it can even improve beyond that. That's without consuming copious amounts of carbohydrates, without consuming copious amounts of starchy vegetables, but still consuming moderate amounts of leafy greens, moderate amounts of soluble fiber, and moderate amounts of insoluble fiber. If fiber does not count towards your bottom line net carbs, why wouldn't we add fiber? So anyway, the point is a well-crafted ketogenic diet is completely different than a just blanket ketogenic diet. And unfortunately, we are in a society right now where a blanket basic ketogenic diet isn't healthy. And Thomas DeLauer, as like the guy that, has built his brand upon talking about keto, I will be the first to say that I get scared about what the mainstream has taken with keto, because that is what's getting illuminated. If we don't start making changes with how people view keto, keto's going to go away. And I say that because people are going to start smothering it and pushing it down in articles like this that are going to. So we need to do what we can to still remember that keto is a style of still eating clean. It gives you a lot more flexibility in a lot of ways because, yes, we can manage our insulin levels a little bit better. We can manage that insulin glucagon ratio better. I would argue that you can put yourself in a much more advantageous position to recruit fat as a fuel source. Much more advantageous position, if you ask me, to be able to utilize fat better. Calories still matter, but anyhow, point is it's up to us. And I know that I'm serious about this. You know that I'm serious when I'm hopping on a live, and I know that, because I don't do this often, right? But I wanted to hit this quick and I wanted to nip it in the bud because it's so important. So everyone, like, if you do keto, if you like keto, if you want, please share this video, get it out there so that people don't just take this short little condensed review version of this study and take that to the bank. So just please do us all a service. Okay, share it, get it out there, because I'm trying to make this as simple as possible too. Okay, so now moving on. The next part of this study had talked about keto not being safe long-term. Okay, so I'm not really sure what they're considering to be long-term here. Okay, in this researchers reference, I got a little note here. They referenced a 2020 meta-analysis from the journal Nutrients. And this is interesting. It says, quote, a 2020 meta-analysis of 38 studies lasting 6 to 12 months and including 6,499 participants, low carbohydrate diets defined here as less than 40% of energy from carbohydrate, led to a small weight loss compared with low-fat diets, defined as less than 30% energy from fat. With considerable variability between individuals and between studies. More than half of included studies met criteria for general ketogenic diet. Okay, that's what's weird. Less than 40 grams of carbohydrates. This is confusing because less than 40 grams of carbohydrates is not a typical ketogenic diet, right? So they're skewing this data a little bit. And Frontiers in Medicine is a good journal, and they don't publish garbage generally. So I do think that this study was probably well crafted. I don't think that the study mechanics, I am not blaming the researchers, none of that. They did their job. I don't necessarily believe there's an agenda. I think they were truly trying to do a good service here, but I think that there is some really fatal flaws with how the design was. Then the actual meta-analysis itself states, quote, this meta-analysis suggests that low carbohydrate diets are effective at improving weight loss, HDL, and triglyceride lipid profiles. However, this must be balanced with potential consequences of raised LDL and total cholesterol in the long term. So in addition, sorry, again, I'm glancing over because I wrote some notes out. We also have this 2021 meta-analysis that I've covered in another video. Okay, and let me back up for a second, just so I don't jump all over the place. I don't want to lose people. What this study is basically saying is that you're going to have improvements in triglyceride. You're going to have improvements in weight loss and HDL, but there's a huge consequence because there's high levels of LDL. Now, I am not a medical doctor, and I know to stay in my lane on YouTube, and you probably have noticed that. I don't dance a fine line too much into that world because it's not my position to be your doctor. It's not. I am not a doctor. I am some guy on the internet, as I always say, and I will stand behind that. But what I will say, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't be concerned with cholesterol. I think years and years of research in that world tell us, yes, we absolutely still need to pay attention to that. But one of the things that you do need to also know is that when you consume more saturated fat, when you consume, your LDL levels will go up. Okay, that is not unusual. So I don't think that it's a fair thing to say that that makes keto unsafe. That's just my opinion, okay? Because yes, literally what you eat in that given day can reflect, okay, saturated fat changes the receptors, the LDL receptors in the liver, temporarily makes it so that the LDL can't dock. So LDL will stay in the circulating plasma for a while. Anyhow, I digress. Wow, we got a lot of people in this. This is awesome. I appreciate this, guys. Please, again, I'm going to stop really quick and say, if you're watching this, if you're getting value out of this video, anyway, I don't want to force you to like it, but hit the thumbs up button. Give me a big like. It's just appreciate that so we can get this content out there because again, I'm not here just defending keto. It sounds like I am, but in a lot of ways, this is Thomas coming out and saying, a lot of the keto industry, I don't agree with. A lot of people promoting keto, I do not agree with. In fact, most of the people this day and age, like smaller influencers, things like that, I don't agree with what they say is keto because I think it's spreading the wrong message. And this study that just came out is going to scare people away from doing keto the right way when keto's not bad if it's done right. So I get frustrated, and I am frustrated, and I'm concerned. And I'm not just concerned because my brand and career is built around keto. It's not. If you've seen my channel, I talk about everything, right? But anyhow, so there was a 2021 meta-analysis that was in the BMJ that found strict low carbohydrate diets could be the best for patients that are trying to manage insulin levels and things like that. So it's kind of funny because that one was looking at that specifically. So when you start looking at most of the studies that are comparing low carb or very low carb that are like significantly just low carb, like less than 10% calories from carbohydrates, they ended up having better success in terms of managing like insulin levels and things like that. We do have to take that into consideration for metabolic health, right? There's the lipid issue, there's the sugar issue. Anyhow, I don't want to go on and on. I'm not going to talk too much about cholesterol because it may sound like that's my area of expertise, but I'm not a clinician. Okay. At the end of the day, I'm still a guy on YouTube, right? Like I can tell you what I read. I can tell you what I've applied. I've lost 100 pounds, but I also, once again, kind of stay in my lane with that. I'm scrolling down to other parts about this because one of the things that I feel like we need to know is the processed meat side. I've covered this in a lot of my Costco videos. Processed meat is never a good thing. And I don't like that the review author jumped to conclusions and said that the keto diet that is rich in saturated fat. I don't know where this data came from. I don't know if they just assumed that most people. I'd actually be curious right now, people that are watching via the comments, and please be honest, okay? Because YouTube's pretty anonymous, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being never, 10 being every day, how often do you eat processed meat? Because I know my channel tends to attract people that are trying to do keto a little bit different. They are, because I talk about targeted keto. So I just would love to see, let's take a quick break on this for a second so I can see this, okay? Okay, yeah, see, we got a lot of people that are the 0, 1, 2s, and I'm kind of in that ballpark too. I'd probably say like I'm a 2-ish. Like I would probably, it happens, right? You have processed foods. It's even a lot of the keto baked goods and stuff have some, sodium phosphates and things in there, which I'll explain in just a minute. Look at this. Okay, you see, there's some people that I love it. I love people are being honest because I see some 9s, I see some 10s. I appreciate this. This is amazing because this is what, and then I see a lot of 0s and 2s, right? I'd say 2 is probably the biggest common number I'm seeing here. So that tells us that most people, at least here, are probably not eating a bunch of processed meat. And when you look at the data, like sodium phosphate, for instance, sodium phosphate is not good. And sodium phosphate is in processed meat all the time. And it's designed to give it like a really fresh appearance. It's designed to kind of retain water, but it also chelates minerals. It's a very negative thing. Like sodium phosphate will chelate minerals in your gut and prevent them from like absorbing properly. So then you're nutrient deprived or, demineralization. Also, we can end up absorbing phosphate in greater proportions and increasing our blood plasma levels of phosphate. Okay, that is not good. Okay. And I get a little bit frustrated with this because on one hand, we have a group of individuals that will say, keto's bad, just do flexible dieting and eat whatever you want. Okay. But in that world of eating whatever you want, that would basically saying that processed meats are fair game. Okay. How come in that category, we're not like picking apart that category? But when it comes into keto, we're picking on processed. I'm not an expert in this, and I don't have epidemiological studies, and I don't have all the statistics in front of me, okay? But I can tell you that most of the people that I talk to that watch this channel, when they do keto, they eat less processed meat than people that don't do keto. Would you agree? Would you agree that most people that are not doing keto, that are just eating regular, and probably maybe watching calories, maybe they probably eat more processed? I can't say for certain, but again, I can hypothesize, right? So bottom line is I agree. Like that's not good. Nitrates, not good. Okay. Nitrites and nitrates coming from like celery, sure. But like the stuff that's in a lot of bacon, I could see how it could be easy, right? You look at this study, you'd be like, okay, if we took what most people say they enjoy on keto, people say they like cheese, they like bacon, they like this. If they took a list like that and they would just assume that people aren't choosing healthier options, better options, yeah, right? A lot of bacon has nitrates, not good stuff, right? Processed meats. And again, why? Because what is the quintessential, like, what is this image poster child of keto? This poster child of keto is a big old fat, thick cut of bacon. I love my bacon, but it's a cut of bacon with some cheese. And so, of course, someone that hasn't given it the GI tried keto is going to look at that and they're going to assume that that's what we all eat. I don't know about you, but I authored a book on Mediterranean keto, right? Like literally wrote a book on eating keto following like Mediterranean fundamentals. I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm frustrated because everything's going to hit the fan if we don't step up. Anyway, moving on a little bit. Got a lot of people here. This is awesome. Sorry. Okay. Another note I made. Sorry, I just made a whole list of things so that because I get on a rant. There's something called new 5GC as well. Some of you are going to hate me for saying this, but I can make a solid case that like if we consume too much red meat, we run ourselves into a problem too. And I know I'm a proponent of Mediterranean style of keto, and I'm not saying don't enjoy a grass-fed burger, but people that are consuming like 3 square meals a day with red meat, there's some evidence that, yeah, the new 5GC, which is a foreign particle that is in meat, yes, that can affect us. Okay. So yes, people are going to freak out. And I'm not saying don't eat red meat. That's not what I'm saying. Okay. But I am saying that there's some studies that indicate that this new 5GC and how our body receives it, if we consume too much of it, So yeah, if you look at almost any study that is consuming copious amounts of that, you start seeing a problem. Anyhow, then went into this other section. I'm skipping a little bit, but it said keto diets may be especially unsafe for women who are pregnant or may become pregnant. Low carb diets are linked to a higher risk of neural tube defects in the baby, even women who take folic acid. So keto, remember, is a fasting mimicking diet. Okay. It's a lifestyle, but it's also, the idea behind it is you are putting yourself into a heightened AMPK state where you are triggering your body to think that it is deprived of fuel. And that is not necessarily something you do for long term. You cycle in and out of it and periodically treat it as what is called a hormetic stressor. The ketogenic diet should be treated as a stressor. Are there people that have been doing keto for years? Yes, I did keto. I've been doing keto off and on now for 10 years. 10 years, right? It's 300 pounds before. And I was strict keto for about 5 years, where I don't think I came off more than a couple times. And I've learned sort of the error of my ways. I realized I felt much better when I would kind of go 3-4 months on keto, then come off, and go back on, whatever, little periods, time off here and there. And that's for glucose tolerance. It's for a number of reasons. And never would I say that I don't think anyone's out there saying that keto is good for pregnant women. I haven't seen that. Even like the most uneducated influencer, and I say that politely, I don't mean like uneducated in this. I just mean like someone that's just spewing for views, right? I would say even in that case, like I don't see it very often. I think it's just too sketchy of a world to talk about. So I just don't think that, I think that was put in there as a fear thing because they know that that's going to scare people. Well, let it be known that I don't think that's a good idea anyway. And I'm not saying it's not a good idea because it's unsafe. It's just like, we don't know enough about it. And if you look at the fundamentals of keto, it is a stressor. And you don't want to necessarily be stressing your body when you're pregnant. But then again, I'm not an OBGYN. I don't know. I'm just a guy on the internet, right? Hey, real quick, well, I've got some people on here too. I'm going to give this is YouTube, right? We all have to, work, right? And make a living. I put a link down below for Thrive Market, which you guys probably hear me talk about on my channel. I guess it's relevant to mention. So I put a link down below. If you want to try out Thrive Market, you can get 25% off your first order, and also get a free gift along with them. That link down below in the description. So make sure you do check them out. It's well worth it. If you are doing keto and you're trying to choose better foods, you're trying to choose foods that work well for keto, things that I recommend, it's just worth taking a look because you can sort by keto. When you get on there, you can see the different foods that I recommend. You can see, Thomas's favorite grocery lists and my shopping list. It's just worth it. And they're a big supporter in this channel. And again, if you're on this live broadcast, you're probably someone that watches my channel and you understand the economics of it. So I am greatly appreciative of you guys supporting our sponsors because that's what keeps us going. So big thank you. Again, that link is down below. And definitely, if you're new to keto and you're trying to figure out what to do, check them out down below. And we've got a few more minutes where I want to review a couple more things, and then I'm going to open this up to questions. Hopefully some people have reviewed this study as well. I'll make sure after this broadcast I link to it, and I'll probably pin it in a comment because I want you guys to look at it. I want you to be able to see it. I'm not just here, doing what I do. Anyhow, so thank you to Thrive Market. Please do check them out. Just if you want to say thank you to me, try Thrive and say thank you to them because it's the best way that you can support this channel. I don't use Patreon. I don't use any of that stuff. This channel's run because sponsors keep us going. So appreciate the heck out of Thrive. Okay. There was another piece that said that higher protein keto diets could hasten kidney issues. This is a concern no matter what diet you do. Okay. So a low-fat diet should still be high protein, okay? And I think any calories in, calories out person, and again, I'm not an anti-keto guy, but I'm still going to promote protein being thermogenic, right? Protein is thermogenic. Protein is, it's critical, right? It's 20% of the calories from protein go straight to the metabolizing effect of metabolizing the protein. If you want to lose weight, you eat protein. Like it's pretty common. Now, I don't care if you were vegan, vegetarian, carnivore, whatever, it's still the same. Like protein is still fundamental, like for muscle protein synthesis and for keeping the balance of muscle protein breakdown so that you're not breaking down more than you are synthesizing. You want to be synthesizing. So anytime you consume copious amounts of protein, if you're not drinking water, sure, you could affect your kidneys, but I'm not a bodybuilder. I mean, I was overweight and I lost weight and I got in shape, but I definitely never consider myself a bodybuilder. But if you look at, even the mild bodybuilding community, like, I mean, when they run into issues, most of them aren't running into kidney issues. Most of them, if anything, are running into heart issues. And it's because of their lifestyles, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of other factors that I'm not even going to talk about on this channel that go into that. And again, it's like when you look at them, these guys are guys that are 300, 400, 500 grams of protein, lots of protein. And a lot of them, I'm not saying that it's safe, but I'm saying like, though they would be a perfect example. So I just think that it's a hydration thing. It's a fluid retention thing. I'm not a doctor. I can only say what I can say, but the bottom line is that's not specific to keto. So we can't just say keto is bad because of that. What we want to talk about and what they are failing to mention in this is that a well-crafted ketogenic diet is proving to be, and I'm going to safely say this, just as effective as other means of losing weight. I think I'm not going to come out and say it's better. I mean, there's some evidence that shows that there's actually a lot of evidence that shows that you'll maintain muscle mass better. But there's also evidence other ways, right? Like science is just so weird. Like when you look at these studies, and I'm just being so honest with you right now, like when you look at the research, come on, you guys know that like you can find 2 studies supporting this, 2 studies supporting that. At the end of the day, you have to get excited about what's working for you. And what I don't want to have happen is have this review come out and just destroy everybody's momentum for the wrong reasons. I did keto, lost 100 pounds because I felt amazing with it. And I tried everything else. And intermittent fasting and keto worked for me. And I get fearful. Like if I was in my, put myself 8 years ago and this review article came out, I may have stopped keto. And how would my life be different? And it's just, anyway, we have to look at the big picture here. Ketones themselves have powerful properties independent of the whole weight loss piece. Okay, they're histone deacetylase inhibitors. What that means is they allow our genes to express more. They allow us to activate part of our DNA and our express genes that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to activate. And the way that I explain that is imagine that you have a plethora of dresser drawers on a wall. And that is your lock and key, all your genes locked up, right? Well, when you express a gene, it's like you open that drawer and suddenly all of your genes are there ready to be expressed. Play on words. I didn't do that on purpose, but genes like Genes, not like folding your jeans, but it kind of works either way. So such a dad joke. Anyway, so you pull that out and you've got your genes, right? Well, what if that door was locked and you could never access those genes, right? I guess you'd be walking around just in your underwear that day, but point is you could never access your genes. Well, expressing your genes means being able to open that drawer and get to those genes. Well, what happens is through various events and as we get older and things change, we have what is called deacetylase or histone deacetylase. So what ketones do is they are a histone deacetylase inhibitor. Histone deacetylase comes in and it puts a padlock on our genes. Okay, ketones, no pun intended, have a key to unlock that padlock. So we have more potential to access those genes. What does this mean though? Does this really mean anything? I mean, okay, you can access my genes, but it means that you're able to express proteins that might be better for you to get better at running or get better at burning fat or get better at processing carbohydrates, right? It just universally helps us. So it's very, very important, okay? And then also now there's some more recent science coming out, a study I just talked about called beta hydroxybutyrylation, which is wild, but it's involved in gene splicing. Okay, that is such an important part of human evolution in terms of how we splice genes and how our genes, we have our genes splice into multiple components so that we can express different DNA and we can express different sort of, how would I say this? Not variables, but basically gene variants, right? Anyway, I'm not a genetic scientist either, but I'm fascinated by this and it's a lot of the work that I do. So let me tell you what I think a well-crafted ketogenic diet looks like. Okay. I think a well-crafted ketogenic diet is going to be probably 30 to 40 to 50% good quality, relatively lean protein, right? Fish, chicken, turkey, whatever, right? Like those kinds of things. Duck, venison. I like venison because it's so lean. And maybe out of that protein, I would say 10 to 20% can be a good quality lean red meat, right? This is how I would craft it. Most of my fats are coming from olive oil. They're coming from avocados. They're coming from MCT oil. I would say about 10 to 15% of my total calories from fat in a given day are coming from saturated fat. Not that much, right? And I'm not doing this to toot my horn. I'm just giving you an example because some people are going to come on here and be like, Thomas just did this video just to say, that he's perfect and that he does. No, I mean, I'm good because people ask what I eat, and it's just important. Okay. The carbohydrates that I do come in, that are coming in generally from the little leftover parts that are coming from fiber. I consume quite a bit of veggies. I consume a fair bit of chia. I consume a fair bit of flax. I consume a fair bit of macadamia nuts, which still have small amounts of carbs. I consume a fair bit of Brazil nuts, hazelnuts, get some nuts coming in from that. The bottom line, and I do consume some cheese, right? But I don't consume a lot of it. Most of the cheese that I consume is goat cheese or feta or hard cheeses that are going to be richer in the right kinds of proteins, richer in the calcium and the vitamin K, Pecorino Romano, Parmesan, regular Romano, whatever. Okay, so it gives you a concept of, if you think Mediterranean, keto's not bad. But one of the most important things that I want to impress upon you today is that since keto is stressful on the body, don't be afraid to have a periodic time off, okay? And allow your body to develop an ability to still process carbohydrates, right? To still utilize them. And because the video I published yesterday that talked about another study that indicated that keto could be making us diabetic, if you look at the short term, if you take people that are doing keto right now for 3 months and then all of a sudden gave them 100 grams of carbohydrates, they would not process those carbohydrates as well as someone that was already eating carbohydrates. Well, you think? Because our body is an efficient machine that gets good at what we are doing. If you go out and you go for a run right now and you run for the next month, you're going to be better at running than biking probably. But if you went out and you started biking a bunch for a month, and then you decided to go for a run, you'd be inefficient at running. Everything about us is about developing efficiency and streamlining efforts, right? Including our biochemistry inside of us. And all the way down to GLUT4 transportation, being able to utilize glucose independent of insulin, that ability diminishes while we're on keto. But guess what increases? Our ability to oxidize fat. So we trade one thing for another. Good or bad, neutral. Efficiency, come on, right? So if I were to give you 17 pixie sticks and a drizzle of agave on it, like, you might not process it that great. I'm sorry. But if I were to look at your data and write a study on it, it'd be pretty messed up, right? To be like, Bob does not process carbs very well. Keto ruined him. That's not fair. You can't do that, right? So you got to look at the big picture. Whereas when you look at most of the data, and unfortunately, what sucks for us is that a lot of that data is in rodents because it hasn't been done in humans yet. So we're stuck here, like, looking at rodent studies and using those. But the point is that when you look at mice, you see, if they go off keto, they are glucose intolerant, they don't process the carbohydrates very well, but then after a couple of weeks, they balance back out, they process them fine again. And it's a short-lived event. And exactly, let me tell you this. And again, I love it that I have a lot of people on this, which, by the way, please do hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, smash it, crush it, break your screen, okay? And if you are doing keto for a while, and then all of a sudden you jump off of keto and you have a bunch of carbs for like a week, do you notice that you actually don't feel super, super good for the first 5 to 10 days? But if you stick with it, you actually start feeling okay on the carbs again? Let me just see by show of like people. Will Durant says, I wonder if his wife ever gets a word in. Have you ever thought that maybe this is my only opportunity to talk? No, I'm just kidding. Point is, this was going to be this is a different kind of live broadcast because this is going to go out. People are going to search this, and I can't be just interacting constantly because people need to be able to watch. And again, I'm saving it towards the end to be able to answer some questions and talk to people. So see, a lot of people are saying, like, once you cut off of keto, like in the beginning, you don't feel so good. And what happens is it takes a while to develop that glucose tolerance again. And it's just because your body's not used to taking in a bunch of glucose. And the other common rebuttal that's happening is that our brain needs glucose and we're starving ourselves of glucose. Well, your brain is you're never denying your brain glucose. Your brain is getting glucose from other substrates. So anyhow, I want to open this up to questions. And before I do, let me just, hopefully everyone got some value out of this. And I want to say one more time that this study was not poorly crafted. I mean, no malice towards the frontiers in medicine. I mean, absolutely, no malice towards Lee Crosby. I don't know what the intent was. No malice whatsoever from my end, because a paper is just a paper. But the fact that it is getting pushed around by the anti-keto community so much and misconstrued, and I know my people, right? I know my followers. I know my viewers, right? I know my viewers are doing it right because I make sure that I talk about that. So it just cuts me deep. Okay, anyhow, let's ask some questions. Has anyone watched this or looked at this article? I'll make sure I link to it. I think my good man, my main man, my right man, hand man, Matt, it might be here kind of moderating this. And I know he's posted a poll and posted some stuff asking, comment if you are keto right now, or vote yes if you are keto right now. Matt, I don't know if you can, because it's not letting me, but if you're watching, actually, you know what? Maybe I can. Here we go. Here's the article. I'm going to post it in the comment section right now. You guys can go check it out later on. Okay. Anyway, so it's in the comment section. I'll also put it in the description for people that watch it later. But if you have watched it, I want to open conversation up for those people first. If you have seen this article, if you have some questions on it, can you go ahead and bring them up? I'll go ahead and answer the best that I can, because this study was it took a lot of data, but it's pretty straightforward. You guys are awesome. I just got to say, by the way, now that I'm just kind of talking to the crew here, people that are still watching this, you guys are awesome. I have the most loyal group, and that I will always bring you the truth, right? I'm not going to feed you a bunch of nonsense. If you have my gospel truth, honest word here, that if an honest paper comes out that were to say that there were really things that were dangerous about keto, sincerely dangerous, I would let you know, okay? Because I am not the keto guy. I am not your guru, to quote Tony Robbins, right? Okay, I will bring you information based upon what I'm learning, what I'm doing, what's working for me, and reverse engineer as much as I can to be able to articulate it to you, whether that's keto, whether that's vegan, okay, I will do what I am doing. And if I read a paper that scares the living daylights out of me and makes me say, wow, maybe I should start looking at something different, you can trust that I will bring that to you, because that is my duty to you as 2.8 million subscribers, okay? Okay, we got some questions coming in. Actually, here's a good one from Chris. I'm getting bored on low-carb keto. Do you advise doing paleo for a bit to give you a reset? Paleo is a great way to just take a reset. And that's just the thing. It's you absolutely will get bored. It's a normal thing to get bored, right? You start craving the crunch. You start craving. So yes, if you're getting bored, I would say that paleo is the best option for most people that are coming off of keto, simply because it's relatively low glycemic. You're still pretty close to the earth. You're still getting good, value in the nutrients that you're getting. Another question that had come in. Yeah, someone says Silent Drive says, yeah, the Thomas DeLauer, the anti-Thomas videos are strangely hilarious because they say that he cherry picks when in reality that's what they're doing. I know, it's kind of funny. I think it's interesting because I kind of do the opposite of cherry picking. I try to just I really try to just take a big wide spectrum look. Okay, Camila Maza, someone keeps asking me if I can shout out Camila Maza. Camila Maza, what's going on? Can I eat crocodile on breakfast? I don't know. That is an interesting question. That's okay. Questions are coming in really fast. Mr. Mean just says, okay, bottom line. So no worries on keto. I don't want to go back. No, I'm going to say no worries. You don't really have to be concerned, but I'm also, stand up desk. You also don't have to take my word to the bank always. Okay, sorry. Another Someone says, "You're still my keto guru." All right, I appreciate that. Okay, Alexander says, thoughts on being keto or low carb and carb cycling? Any way to mix that? Yeah, I've done a number of videos on that. And so the thing we have to remember with carb cycling, if you do decide to come off of keto for whatever reason, is that carb cycling needs to be done in a longer term fashion than what people typically think. People will usually say, oh, okay, I'll do like 3 days carbs or 3 days keto, 2 days carbs, 3 days. That's not enough time. You're bouncing back and forth a lot there. And I'd be concerned about something called metabolic gridlock, where you're really not letting the mitochondria develop like an affinity for one particular fuel source. I don't know. So what I have found to work really well, in my humble opinion, is going like 2-3 months keto and then like a month of paleo-ish and then coming back. And I did a video, you could just do a search for it. Like I called it, I think the 5 cardinal rules of carb cycling. I feel like that video is very helpful in terms of just helping people understand how to come off of keto, because I feel like, again, maintaining some glucose tolerance is important. Does the study indicate anything new for intermittent fasting? No, Doug, it doesn't mention intermittent fasting, but there's a recent study that came out that I just filmed a rebuttal on that's going to come out in another week or so that says that intermittent fasting is worse than typical caloric restriction. It was a very well-crafted study, randomized crossover design, which is such a good study design. And it's interesting, and there's definitely some things to point out. So keep your eyes and ears open for that video that's coming out. The bottom line is that, again, I say that a lot. If intermittent fasting is working for you, there's not necessarily a danger to it. It's just suggesting that if your only goal is weight loss, that maybe caloric restriction could work just as well. And it could work just as well. But I don't want to sit there counting my leaves of lettuce and counting my beans that I eat every single day. That just doesn't sound exciting to me. I'd rather have some flexibility and not count my macros constantly and just know that I have some flexibility based upon my eating patterns and my timing system. Crystal Terry says, me again, just wanted to thank you for everything. Changed mine and my family's life with your information. Thank you for making us. I always love these broadcasts are always so great in terms of just a little bit of validation, I guess. I mean, a study like this comes out, I get down on myself. What do you think of the Bernstein diet? A lot of people have asked me about that. I don't know much about it, so give me some time to take a look at it. Free Carb Monty says, I'm eating cheeseburgers and green beans with grass-fed butter and Himalayan pink salt for my one meal right now. I lost 150 pounds on keto. That's impressive. Been on keto 8 months, lost 50 pounds. I want to cycle in some carbs, and I'm afraid to wake the carb cravings. Now, that is a very viable thing. So let me address that. The carb cravings are a real deal. That's what we have to think about, right? Is especially when you've been off of carbs for a while, it's like it's opening the floodgates, right? And I think let's call a spade a spade. When people have success with keto, a lot of it is because they are hypersensitive to the cravings that come in with carbs, and those cravings seem to be a little bit nullified with keto. And a lot of it has to do with keto kind of over the longer term having an effect on ghrelin, having an effect on our hunger hormones. And we have to remember that caloric restriction at the end of the day is great for a lot of things, longevity, for how energy levels, everything. So caloric restriction is still great. Like, I don't think that you should be doing keto trying to load up a bunch of calories. So the concern is, okay, what's going to happen if I have carbs again? Is it going to make me, turn into this like just monster that wants to consume a bunch of carbs? Short answer is it probably will for a couple of days, because your glucose tolerance is going to be out of whack. Your insulin receptors are probably not going to recognize as well. GLUT4 transport is not going to be as good. You're not going to have as much what's called GLUT4 translocation where it comes to the outer membrane of the cell. Membrane fluidity is not as well. So it's good. So you run into that issue, but it typically goes away after a week or two. And what most people don't do is give it enough time. You didn't get here overnight. You didn't get to where you were doing, keto overnight, right? When you come off of keto and you start implementing carbs, you're going to have a weird shock to your system at first, but it's okay. Your body will kind of balance back in. Now, you can also expect that you will probably see a fluctuation in weight, and that's normal because all of a sudden you're bringing in carbohydrates, which are going to hold in water, and you're just going to, it's a normal thing. One of the most important things that someone had said to me that was so basic and so simple, and I've addressed it, but indirectly, is that if you want to have more carbs and maintain metabolic flexibility, just be active enough to burn those carbs. It's that simple. Like when you are first transitioning off of keto, the carbohydrates that you take in are not going to soak into the cell as well. So you are better off trying to move more and burn them. When you move muscles, you translocate GLUT4 to the outer membrane, which means then you have the ability to take those carbohydrates in. you just focus on that more. Like, I'm adding carbs in, I'm going to move more. I'm going to exercise a little bit more as my body transitions. Let's see, 1 serving of fruit per day. Yeah, okay, so Mosey Original says 1 serving of fruit per day, fresh veggies mostly, moderate red meats, oily fish, no grains, no legumes, no processed foods, no seed or vegetable oils, no sugars, IF on off, worked like a charm for 7 years. Exactly. I'm new to keto. Can I do a cheat day in the beginning? That's a great question. I would give it 30 days before you have a cheat meal when you first start keto. And that simply comes back down to the glucose tolerance kind of thing. And also just that gray area. The whole idea here when we're getting going is we want the body to produce those ketones. Once you're producing ketones regularly, it's a bit of a different situation to be able to bounce out of keto, and you'll probably be able to get right back. But as you're, let's call it indoctrinating, it's very important that you pay attention to that. Let's see. Question regarding supplements as magnesium, vitamin D, collagen. Should you take them together or space them out during the day? Is it possible some supplements cancel out others? Some supplements can cancel out others. One of the main one that I know of for sure is like calcium can cancel out magnesium. I would never recommend a calcium supplement. Always get calcium from the diet. Good hard-aged cheeses that has vitamin K in it as well is the way to go. And then in terms of vitamin D, collagen, you don't necessarily have to space those out. Some people say that taking vitamin D at night is going to mess with the diurnal rhythm, but I don't believe it does, because if you synthesize vitamin D from the sun, it's going to take a couple hours to reach its full D3 form through the conversion process. So I usually say take it with dinner, but preferably when it's still light out. It's the only real insight I have on that. Will Lawson said, I figured out. Personal question. Do you make the babies in the keto up? Oh, gosh. There's some evidence that it can help testosterone levels. Yes, that's funny. I kind of read that, and then halfway through, I was like, maybe I shouldn't have read that one. Sorry, good questions. Wow, Zach Cardiff, I lost 300 pounds over 2 years on clean keto with intermittent fasting. My blood tests are good. Cholesterol levels are in check. Yeah, you know what? And the thing is like mine are too. And I think that, and I guess, I said this to a client of mine before, is that people, just because keto works for a lot of people, it doesn't mean that it works for everybody. And the nice thing is, on this channel, like, it's my commitment to provide you with the evidence-based nutrition, but also more so lifestyle-based, like what works for you. And although I have a lot of keto content because I enjoy talking about it, I also understand that not everyone wants to do that. And the nice thing about intermittent fasting, and why I think it's going to outlive keto, candidly, is because intermittent fasting is always going to be able to be applied perpendicular with whatever other diet people are doing, vegan, paleo, whatever. Intermittent fasting works with that. Let's see. Adrian says, someone told me that all we eat, carbs, protein, fats, get converted to carbs or glucose in the body. Is that true? That's a great question. And in some ways it is true. But it's not like components of everything we eat will potentially get converted into carbohydrates when we are in a potential energy deficit. Okay. So for example, when we are in ketosis and we have no carbs coming in, the body will create carbohydrates via gluconeogenesis from all kinds of different substrates. It will do that from fat. It'll take the glycerol backbone from fat and create that into carbohydrates. It will take proteins. It'll break down alanine, which is a big driver for gluconeogenesis. Alanine is an amino acid. It'll take alanine and it'll drive that through gluconeogenesis to create carbohydrates. And even your literal exercise, your lactate byproduct of exercise, will literally go through what's called the Cori cycle and get converted into glucose. Glucose is still like trumps all in our body, right? It's just, we're trying to manipulate how the body recruits, and creates glucose, I should say. So yes, in a way they're right, but also kind of not, because I think what they were saying was not exactly that. Okay, hey, I do a 24-hour fast Monday, then continue with keto for 3 days, then continue 2 days of 16-hour fast, then eat whatever I want. Yeah, it's kind of nice, actually. Sounds a lot like a 5-2 strategy where people just will go kind of eat really strict for 5 days and then take 2 days of pretty flexible. I kind of like that. 24-hour fast Monday, continue with keto for 3 days, then continue 2 days of 16-hour fast, and then eat whatever you want Sunday. It's pretty flexible. And I think you got to find what works for you. And I know that's a generic answer, but you do. You got to find what works for you. Does Element, the electrolyte, break a fast or affect autophagy? I've been using it leading up to my extended fast. Generally, no. I mean, I know there's some flavorings in there that make it like a couple calories, but you'll be fine. Kelly says there's an ignorant mindset that started with low carb that has been passed to keto. Spanish Mediterranean keto is the best diet around. Kelly, thank you for saying that. We just have to stand firm in this, that eating cheeseburgers, eating processed meat. So what I encourage everyone to do is, on your social media, again, we are the ones that can pave the way of this, right? We need to change how people look at keto. And it's going to make it less appealing for some. It's going to make it less sexy because, what's happening is marketers come in and they say, eat whatever you want, eat as much bacon, eat as much cheese. And that's not reality. If we want keto to stick around, if we want people to continue to make good keto products, if we want people to be able to continue to provide research, we're only going to research keto if it's working. Okay, keto is working in all kinds of different applications, in military and academic and whatever. But we're not going to see mainstream studies unless people start really paving a good way of doing keto. It's so important. Does broth break a fast? Yes, it does. Let's see. Does MCT oil have the same negative effects as exogenous ketones I mentioned in the video? No, it's different. Because exogenous ketones, MCT is going to trigger ketone production, but only sort of what the body needs at that point in time. Like if you were to be eating a bowl of rice right now and had exogenous ketones, you would elevate your plasma ketones. MCT is driving ketogenesis. You're not automatically creating, if you ate a bowl of rice and put MCT oil on it, you're not going to be in ketosis, right? So different ballgame. Still has to go through ketogenesis. The only benefit with MCT oil is how it comes from the liver through the portal vein, or directly from the gut through the portal vein directly to the liver, converts into acetyl coenzyme A faster, so it creates ketones faster. What's my view on keto for children? I did a video on this, but YouTube flagged it and it just didn't get very far because anything talking about kids and stuff is kind of no bueno in terms of nutrition content. So I try to kind of avoid that. But if you just want my humble opinion, I'll tell you flat out, my kids don't eat keto. Let's just put it that way, right? I feel like keto is for adults. I feel like there are situations where children probably do need to manage things better in terms of how they eat and possibly blood sugar. I'm not a doctor. But I think looking at timing of meals and how active they are is the much bigger driver than pulling out all the stops and going keto. I know I'm sorry, I'm not a dogmatic person. I just think it's just better to be real. 24 pounds so far. Is it okay or good or bad to do low carb or keto while trying to get pregnant? Okay, well, that one there is evidence on. I don't remember which journals, but maybe Matt can throw them in the comment section here just to make sure we're always compliant. But PCOS, right? So most of the studies look at women with PCOS that can't get pregnant, and PCOS is largely correlated with insulin resistance. When you look at people that have PCOS are usually insulin resistant, and people that are insulin resistant have a higher incidence of PCOS. People that have PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, usually have a hard time conceiving. In multiple studies, when they put people on intermittent fasting regimens and sometimes keto, where it manages insulin a little bit better, they oftentimes conceive easier. On the male side, I do not know. There's no real studies on spermatogenesis or anything like that. But for women, in terms of balancing luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, and that whole hypothalamic axis, there's a lot of evidence there. All those studies are pretty small. But again, you have to look at the big picture with a lot of that. Someone says, in a nutshell, how does keto and IF resolve chronic back and leg pain? I wouldn't. Again, maybe it's not the answer you want to hear. I have ruptured disc in L5-S1 and L4-L5. I'm frequently in a lot of pain from that. That is an old injury from when I was over 300 pounds, and it sticks with me to this day. And I feel like when I'm keto, I don't have as much pain from it. When my cycle off of keto, I definitely feel more pain from it. Probably a water retention, inflammation, weight thing. When I'm not on keto, I'm about 10 pounds heavier than when I'm on keto because I'm holding more water. So compressing a disc, that could very well be a thing. One could also argue nuclear factor kappa B, NLRP3 inflammasome modulation via keto could help you there. But again, the way of the world right now with YouTube and things like that, I'm careful to even talk about any kind of thing related with pain and inflammation too much. But a lot of the evidence shows that when you look at people that are in some pain, keto seems to help them a little bit. Mechanism of action, more than likely, the nuclear factor kappa B, kind of a master regulator of the inflammatory response in the body. But it also could just be flat out, people lose weight, they start having less pain. So let's see. more questions. I'm going to answer 2 more questions. Okay, Dawn Angel says, I lost 156 pounds, but I gained some back, then lost a little more. I weigh 138, but need to lose at least 10 more. Now I'm stuck. Dawn, one of the best things that I would say when people hit plateaus is, and I say this a lot, is increase the protein by 10 or 20% and decrease the fats by 10%. So increase your I use this a lot because it's so helpful. Increase your protein, and whatever you increase your protein by, decrease your fat by half. So what I mean by that is if you add 20% more protein, take away 10% fat. Okay, so add 20% more protein to your diet, but when you do that, take away 10% fat. So fat has roughly twice the amount of calories as carbs and protein. So when you add more protein to keep your calories eucaloric and commensurate, you need to drop your fat. But people will often say, okay, I'm going to add protein 20% and I'm also going to drop fat 20%. No, don't do that, because then you're going to put yourself in too severe of a deficit. By simply increasing protein but dropping fat so that you're remaining at the same calories but slightly more protein with slightly less fat. Remember, protein is thermogenic in and of itself and requires quite a bit to digest. So that alone is going to put you into probably more of a net caloric deficit, possibly drive up AMPK a little bit more, and possibly even get you more into ketosis by putting you deeper into that state. I have one more question that I'm going to answer. And you guys, please, again, if you can, just go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, please. And remember, I know this was a long-winded video, but I think it's super important. And I really, 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 really would appreciate people giving this a share. Also, guys, if you don't already, follow me on Instagram. I post different kinds of things on Instagram, little tidbits here and there, little short snippets of videos, a lot of times like shorter condensed versions. But share this video out to Instagram, get it out there. Let's have the keto haters come at me on this one. It's all good. But anyway, one more question here. Thomas, should I have salt and cinnamon 30 minutes before I break my fast? I'm going to answer that one as a freebie first. Yes, you can do that. That's perfect. Exactly. Protein shake to break fast. Eating too much protein scares me. Should I worry about protein? Let's see. Bottom line is probably not. Sorry, I'm waiting for a good question here. Can you do a video series on, like, you're coming in so fast, I can't. Sorry guys, like this comments are coming in so fast. I'm like trying to. If you are doing resistance training exercise every day and you walk 3 miles per day, let's say you need to watch calories count to lose weight, but no, that's a hard one to answer. Here we go. How badly does stress mess up the uptake of nutrients? In terms of uptake, I can't comment on that, but I will tell you this. Okay, stress, it's so difficult to just say, like, I want to control my stress, right? You can't just magically do that. But I will say that, like, stress in general, okay, I can kind of go long-winded on this, links with visceral fat, links with inflammation, links with cortisol, right? But we can't just magically get rid of stress. The thing that I find interesting is that I don't know if it has any particular change in our uptake of nutrients, like gastrointestinally. Sure, there's some effects there. I think it affects how we manage glucose. It affects how we utilize fuel. I think our body tends to first go into more of a rapid utilization of fuel when we're stressed, and then chronic stress, it's going to start storing it. Acute bouts of stress can actually help us burn fat. It's the chronic bouts of stress. And stress combined with high levels of insulin, cortisol, insulin, that is a recipe for lipoprotein lipase for fat storage. What I find interesting is we often compare ourselves to, like, our ancient ancestors, where we say we're much more stressed out. I kind of want to end on this note. We tend to, like, kind of say we are much more stressed out than our ancient ancestors because we're chronically stressed all the time. And like our ancient ancestors, okay, you might get chased by a tiger, but then when the tiger's done chasing them, they relax. I wasn't alive back then, but I kind of want to make a point here. Sometimes I think that we are oversimplifying things, because if I got chased by a tiger, I would probably be freaking out for like 3 days after that, thinking that that tiger's coming back for me. I would never be able to really relax at night because I'd always be thinking about that tiger. Our stresses today about, maybe losing our job or things that are serious stressors, I don't know if they compare. I think we were actually much more stressed then. And I think what happened is we developed an ability to deal with it. And I think right now we are not managing our stress better. I don't think our lives are more stressful. I think we are worse at managing it. and we are lacking the ability to have time in our lives to focus on managing it, which is so important. So hopefully that answers that question. But the simple answer with that is it definitely affects metabolic health. And the links with visceral fat are very clear with that. So anyhow, as always, everyone, please don't forget to check out Thrive Market. After this live broadcast is done, I'm going to wrap up now. Just give them a click and check them out. I think you'll appreciate what they have if you haven't checked them out already on my channel. And I love you guys so much. It is so awesome to have you guys here. Please give this video a share. Please, 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 pretty please share it. Get the word out. Check out the study. I'll put it in the description in just a minute. You guys are awesome. Good set of videos coming out this weekend. I'll see you tomorrow.